Hello, hello again. Welcome to our weekly show where we discuss recent developments in the continually evolving blockchain space. But before anything else, I'd like to bring on board my co host, the Resistance Trader, James Genove.
Hello, hello. Hello, yeah, there you go. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are, what part of the world you are into. Thank you and welcome to the show. Hoping you guys are having a good time right now. Happy weekend, Fermin.
Um, Thank you. Likewise, James. So let's get right into it. Our guest for tonight is a digital thought leader, a change maker, and learning designer. He's been actively engaged in international work for 17 years across diverse countries ranging from South Korea, Vietnam, Mozambique, Laos, and the US. Now, he's currently based in Bangkok as the communications lead for Armada, and his journey into the Web3 crypto landscape began in 2017. And since those days, he has taken a deep dive into blockchain, decentralized finance, and NFTs. So, let's not delay any longer. We'd like to welcome our guest for tonight, Nick Garvin.
Hello, gentlemen. Good to be here. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Yo, what's up, Nick?
How's it going? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, loud
Yep,
and
Nick,
clear.
loud and clear, loud and clear.
All right, great. Yeah, very excited. So, yeah, we're here to talk a little bit about Web3.
Right. So
Yep,
let's
yep.
get right into it, Nick. We
FFG.
we we hear about Web3. So perhaps for the benefit of our viewers, what's the difference between Web3 and its predecessors?
Hmm. Okay, yeah, great question. So, um, oh, by the way, thank you for the great introduction. It was very flattering. I speak about this a lot. As you mentioned, I've been in education for a while, right? So, the easiest way for me to explain it is to break it down into phases. We have, we've heard a lot about Web3, but we never really looked back and kind of categorized Web 1 or Web 2 for that matter. In fact, what does that even really mean? For me, I'd like to understand it, and I'd like to explain it by talking about the what we disrupted or what we changed or altered throughout each evolution of the internet. Right? If you look back at the early days, Web 1, we disrupted the way that we received and transferred information. Right? So it was like the information economy was born, and that was where you were able to go to websites, and you had the ability to read websites. You couldn't send email, you couldn't download things yet. It was for developers, it was read only, which means you had very little permissions on the internet except for viewing. Then you kind of move into what we kind of are still in now, a very social phase, right? The YouTube phase, the social media, Twitter, Instagram phase. And I think that's categorized in Web 2 because we disrupted something else. We disrupted the way we communicate, right? So we're in the communication economy now, or the attention economy. And you know that looking again, the permissions changed. We were able to send things back and forth, upload things, become more of a creator instead of just a consumer of the internet. So I think that if you look at each phase of the internet, we are becoming more participatory. And that brings us to Web 3, which is where I think we're going to disrupt how we perceive value. So it's the ownership economy that we'll be creating, and that will look very different from where we are now because we'll get into it later, but you're actually redoing completely redoing completely old existing business models and restructuring things in a more decentralized way. And we can talk about that later, but ultimately you're moving in towards a ownership economy. um, you know
So essentially, whereas before it would have been maybe the the sites that had control of your data, now we're moving into a situation where you control your data.
Yeah, and it's not really something that's revolutionary. We have seen, tech companies focus on this in the past. We know the cons of big tech using our data. We've seen a lot of documentaries about that. But I think, if you look at Brave browser, for example, they are a
Mm.
browser that was competing against Chrome. They're an alternative to Google Chrome and Safari, and their business model is flipped. They, you can opt in, and they will pay you to watch ads. But if you don't want to get paid to watch advertisements, then you could be guaranteed a ad-free experience where they are not using your data and tracking you, and leaving that cookie trail that we're familiar of when we see ads for cat food or whatever they may be that we spoke about earlier. So you have companies and people already doing this, but that I think is the bridge that we're slowly building between Web 2 and Web 3, which is looking at the data as the value that we're disrupting, and looking at how we can have more ownership of our data, how we can monetize it instead of letting others monetize it and make a lot of profit off of us, right? They often say in social media and if it's free, then you're the product. And we are starting to realize that the game was kind of set up with these existing rules that we didn't really know that we were opting into. But now we have an opportunity to recreate that, and I think that's the really cool revolutionary side of blockchain is it's also a bit of a movement too for something a bit more transferable and verifiable.
Well, thank you for that very interesting comparison, or at least which enables our viewers to have a simple way of distinguishing what are the changes as we transition from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to stop at Web 3. We're definitely going to have a Web 4 somewhere along the way, Web 5.
Yeah, I mean, you never bet against innovation, right? If your technology is a curve, it's an S curve that just keeps going, and we've seen that. We've seen that from the Kodak in the digital camera revolution that put Kodak out of business, along with Kodak itself. We've seen stories along the way of companies that either fail to evolve and they get disrupted by something, or we see completely new companies that come in and create something brand new and disrupt, like Apple did with the iPhone, right? It's a very interesting time. I think it's a really good time to be a creator or developer, and because yeah, it's I think learning in general is something that Web3 is going to really impact, and the accessibility of learning with the metaverse, with micro credentialing. I think you're going to really create a lot of great potential to flatten classrooms in a good way. And I think the sky's the limit with what we do with this technology. One thing that I will say though, like I always mention this as a disclaimer, um, because when people ask what's Web3, is that mean crypto? Is that also NFTs? There's a negative cloud and stigma around that kind of stuff, and it's our job as educators to kind of change that perception, because people only hear the stuff that you see on the news, and people forget to separate the technology, which is innocent. The technology has always been innocent and will remain innocent, but the bad actors, that use it perhaps in every space. You can say the same thing about AI. That is the guilty part. That's the human nature side of things. And that happens in any emerging sector, any emerging technology. You have good and bad actors. As we learn how to use this, and the ethics that come, and the responsibility that comes with it. So I think that's something I want to let everybody know. Web 2 or Web 3, you're going to have that kind of stuff, but it's important to separate what you hear on the news about scams and bad actors with the technology itself, because it wasn't invented but for that purpose, right? But the Ponzi's and the other scams and the unfortunate things that you hear and see, and then some of the notorious characters like Sam Bankman-Fried or whomever, they give it a bad rap. And I think it's our job to kind of walk that back a little bit and remember that the technology, what we're all going to be impacted by, remains unchanged, and that's not going away.
No, that's true. I do agree with that. Technology essentially is neither, in theory, technology is neither good nor bad. What makes it good or
Yeah,
bad will be the
yeah,
intention of the people who are using that technology.
Mm.
that's right. That's right.
So, yeah, Nick, with regards to technology, since we are hearing a lot of stuff you just mentioned a while ago, AI, metaverse, NFT, all of this stuff, these are new technologies, right? So, for this show, we've been discussing this for quite a while since then. Now, we would like to hear from you. What would be the new trends and narratives that you are seeing upcoming this year, 2024 and beyond?
Nick, we lost you. Nick, we
Nick,
lost you.
I guess your audio is back buckling.
Is that better? Hello.
Okay,
All right. Sorry
back.
about that. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
we're all good, man.
yeah, talking about narratives, right? Talking about the narratives of this cycle. I'd say every cycle has a bunch of stories and meta and narratives that are birthed and tend to provide the hype for each cycle. There's a lot of good that comes from each one. If you remember 2017, they had the ICO boom. That was the big narrative, and it was where a lot of other altcoins really tried to stand the test of time. Not many made it, but some did. Those carried on through to the 2020 narrative, or a little bit earlier, the DeFi summer narrative. So there was a lot of DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance. A lot of people were getting introduced to lending, staking, borrowing. You know, a lot of the average users didn't understand how those kind of finances work, and DeFi was a good opportunity for them to learn and kind of gain yield and understand the ins and outs of that mechanics without having to go through your traditional finance ways. But each cycle comes with good and bad things. Not everything lasts. We also saw the NFT bubble that happened in 2020-ish or 2019, or leading up around that. I think every cycle you learn lessons. This cycle, what I'm thinking and seeing in terms of projects are mostly utility focused. We even went through that GameFi phase where everything was a play to earn, right?
Hmm.
Everything was something to earn, stream to earn, play to earn, everything but work to earn, and I think like now you're seeing the people who made it through the bear market, they want utility. They and that means they want to know what the added value is of a project. They don't want a token and another token or this and that just ends up and amounts to a bunch of different promises that maybe most teams don't deliver. So I think you're seeing an emphasis on real world utility, the tokenizing of real world assets, which is phrased in crypto for the narrative RWAs. So you may hear a lot about RWAs, which is like the bridging of real world assets. Most familiar with that is like digital art and also real estate. You can fractionalize real estate, but it's going further into collectibles and ticketing and all sorts of events that you're able to merge together through the tokenizing of real world assets. You're also hearing a lot about decentralized infrastructure. For short, they're calling it DPEN. So those are two things that are really driving the narratives. I think, not to mention, Bitcoin, the ETFs. There's always technical narratives, those are two technical ones. But then there's the mainstream narratives. You have your Bitcoin ETF and regulatory approval. You have the happening that's both technical and mainstream coming up. So there's a lot of narratives. I'm very excited for 2024. Everything seems to be coming together at the right time. You can feel it, the energy and everything start to pick back up, and I think it's good for everyone. You guys hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Can hear you. Yeah, thank you for that one. Nick, sorry, my mic was off, but yeah,
Sorry. All
thank you,
right.
thank you. I guess the question about rising new techs is a developing story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Nick. You mentioned, let's say, like NFT. So you're right. With every cycle, you've got new narratives. Conversely, are there sectors that you feel have probably reached their peak and won't see any significant growth
That's a good, that's a really good question because we tend to think that every cycle is going to repeat the same way. Um, and I definitely would say, other the NFTs are not dead, right? They're going through an iteration. They're going through some growing pains. You're seeing more consolidation with communities. Instead of being super tribal and having a million different communities, people are starting to band together. I think those projects that did survive and thrive during the bear market, there were a few that thrived. They found a bridge to the Web2 world. I look at the things that Nike was doing with a lot of NFT projects, Adidas, Gucci. Um, if you look at what Pudgy Penguins did with Walmart, like they ended up in 2,000 Walmart stores, and they went from a JPEG of a penguin cartoon to like a plush toy that's taking over retail. So I think like you're seeing businesses and business models be created out of NFTs. You're seeing that the token behind the NFT is the valuable piece, but it also depends on what the team in the community do with that token. Yeah, we've also learned a lot that some of those prices are not going to come back. That was a bubble and it popped, and unfortunately, those are still holding on to like Bored Apes. They're down significantly. ETH is up, so that's interesting. But we don't really know how these NFT cycles pan out. I mean, we've only been through one, maybe two, and that's not necessarily correlated with your traditional Bitcoin cycle. Even this cycle in general.
Let's just wait for them to get back on.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah, Fermin, you were saying?
No, no, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, no. Just saying in general, this cycle, it doesn't feel the same as the last one, right? It's hard to tell what I don't think the PFPs are coming back the same way. I think that mania is over. I think you're seeing an emphasis on generative art and digital art. But yeah, I think it'll be another run, but it'll look different. It won't look the same like before. I think people have gotten smarter. They've wised up to some of the failed promises and failed projects of the past, and maybe you won't see a market with so much froth and hype this time around, but maybe a market instead focusing on utility.
Yep. And speaking of which, Nick, I was actually about to ask with regards to what you just said,
Mhm.
because you know that a while ago we were talking about improvements in technology, but of course, as the improvement of technology happens, so is the bad actors in the scene. Like scammers. They're also improving their techniques. You know, what do can you share? What do you think are some of the new types of scams that you have seen so far in this site?
Yeah, so there's some very dedicated scammers out there, and you're right. Every time something new comes out, there seems to be, well, it seems to be like if something new is successful, there's a scam of it, right? So if you know what happened with like the blast airdrop and many airdrops that have been happening recently, you'll see somebody immediately ghost a link and create an account, maybe online on social media, on Twitter. Or what they're doing now also is they're paying for ads on to be the, for example, like they're paying Google to be the first thing that comes up when you type in like OpenSea, or if you type in Blur. And for a while there, like scam links were like the first Blur link that popped up, and it looked like it was a Blur link, but it was not. It was actually a phishing link that would drain your wallet. And a couple people like who had a lot of high net worth NFTs in their wallet got drained because of Google algorithms and the ability to not vet these scam links that you know late at night or even in the morning, you're doing something, you type in the link on Google, you expect to go to a link that's safe. But these scammers are paying, they're going the extra mile to have these ads that are malicious, and they're embedded amongst regular things. So it's definitely a
Yeah,
barrier, and it's very
making it
off-putting.
look like legit, right? They try to
Yeah,
make the
it's not great, and they're not going to help us grow new users when people, even myself who've been in this space for a while, like constantly mindful of scams. So yeah, I think there's a lot of phishing links. Also, you have those emails that you have to just check. Discord, Telegram. There's a lot of things. I would just say be very mindful of what you click. Be very careful about what you click these days, because there's so much fakery happening, and there it just takes one bad thing to lose your wallet. It's happened to me before, so yeah, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, like trying to help prevent people from getting scammed or fished online.
Right. And I think the reality is, especially now, as we are in a cycle where the market seems to be heating up, you're gonna have more of them, right? Because
Yeah,
to a scammer, they get to see that, oh, there are valuable assets that we can probably get from people because we're
yep.
in an upcycle at the moment.
They follow the money. Yeah, that's right. And that's it's actually a leading indicator to know that we're going into a bull market, right? It's sad, as sad as that may be. It's like when the scammers come back around,
yeah.
it's time to be
It's
bullish.
actually a bad indicator, but good one as well because we know that
Right.
it's going up.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Well, you did mention earlier in terms of some of the new innovations that we see, like AI. And again,
Yeah.
as we discussed earlier, AI as a technology, it's a good and bad side. So, how do you think AI is going to impact blockchain developments going forward?
It's a good one. Yeah. Um, I I think yeah, I'm gonna start from my experience. I seen it coming and impacting the NFT market and the creator market. Like a lot of artists who are digital artists were very critical of other people who may have used AI in their art and didn't disclose it, right? So I got to see that from the artist perspective, which I found very fascinating because it's like somebody coming in and stomping on their trade and immediately like taking steroids and getting on their level and saying, "Hey, I made this," and then they're trying to, I guess, sell their art and compete in the same space. So I thought that was interesting because I assumed all innovations are kind of welcomed in the Web3 space with open arms, but AI was a controversial one for the NFT creators. Uh, Regarding what AI it will be able to do with the blockchain and with the metaverse and stuff, I just think about tutoring. I think about like how great would it be to have these AI bots that are not just a chat bot, but someone who's helping you in a curated environment, such as the metaverse, that's walking you through concepts or connecting you to other people in the world. I think there's a lot of benefit for AI in education with coupling with blockchain. There's so much that AI allows us to bypass. We don't have to all go to school to be a coder anymore, but we can now use AI as a tool to understand how it works, how coding works, or how blockchain works. And you're going back to what we talked about before with Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, each giving you a little bit more permission. AI on top of that now is the perfect tool that allow you to really leverage the permissions of Web3, and that can be through anything, like through DAOs, or through community, online, and again, like I said, through education and through the metaverse. What do you guys think about it? Like, how do you feel about it? How is it perceived? Because there's always, like you mentioned before, good and bad to the technology, and or sorry, it remains neutral, but there's a use case for it that can go either way, right? Good or bad. But
True. I mean, think if you're looking for people who have a negative connotation about the technology, think Terminator, right?
yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
thinking, oh, with the advent of AI, we're going to have a situation where machines take over. But, one of the things I did tell a friend of mine was that recently they did a study in a university in the UK where they
okay.
basically asked using AI generated information. They asked the AI to do something, and their findings were that over time the results get degraded. So
Mm,
I would agree with you that AI helps, but it's not a magic bullet, and that
that's
there
right.
are still certain components that are, I believe, are still going to need human intervention going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and going back to like those artists that I talked about, like, they're still around. It didn't take their job. It didn't completely make them obsolete. But people now are just living alongside it and learning how to also, work with it. And um, you know, like you said, it's not a quick fix for everything. Like Web3,
I
understanding
think what
AI.
you're gonna see is
Oh, go ahead.
right, but I think what you're gonna see is certain repetitive type of work AI can definitely do quicker
Mm,
and essentially on a perfect scale. So what you're going to end up seeing is that certain industries are going to have to train their workers to move up the value chain so that
yes.
you get to go more onto the higher value added components where you can leave the lower value repetitive tasks to AI.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then think about how that's going to make everyone's workflow so much better. And then maybe giving us more time to be creative, do other things, or innovative in other ways, you know?
Well, I hope our viewers, no, not I hope, I'm sure our viewers have been learning a lot. We do. There's one additional question, Nick, which a viewer
Ah,
has asked. How can
cool.
we, and let me read it, it's from Ranger Keith. How can we
Nice.
assure users about choosing a better centralized exchange? Anybody
Good
can take
question.
the question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Um, I would say look at the ones who have lasted through cycles, and have found ways to play ball with regulators. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But if you look at Coinbase and even like what Binance had to go through, um, you don't want an exchange that's going up against the government, or sorry, or something that is not regulatory compliant with what most of your market and most of your customers need. So I think that's the big thing. Like, careful with these new exchanges that offer high yields and lockups. If it's not proven, if it's not with like some sort of regulatory rule framework, I wouldn't touch it. Yeah. Excuse me. Choking here. But does
So,
that make
Ranger
sense? Like,
Keith, you heard. Now, I'd like to add to that. Certainly, Oh, certainly it does. And just to add to what Nick said, there are sites where you can look at, for example, if you were to go onto CoinGecko, you will see that they assign a trust score to the
mm,
different exchanges. So the trust score is like a rating. It's like going on Agoda and seeing seeing what the reviews are. So clearly, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest.
Yeah.
To follow through with what Nick said, I wouldn't look at any exchange which is rated 7 or lower.
Right.
But again, that's a personal preference, certainly not financial advice. But the idea behind it is
Mhm.
call it trustworthy. So clearly, if you don't rate it very high on that scale, that probably means something.
Yeah, I think so as well. Absolutely. And especially, I would pay attention to the quality of coins that they're listing before I jump in. You know, are we listing tokens that are scammy and something that they're just trying to kind of farm the volume, or are we listing legitimate tokens? You know, that would be something that I would look out for. And yeah, if they were not legit, then that would be a red flag.
Maybe an additional to that would be where you can take a stab at is of course the liquidity, which is very important for traders because
Hmm.
liquidity is one of the key factors in ensuring that whatever you put in the platform, you'll be able to get out in
Yeah.
time when needed.
Yeah, great point. No, excellent point. And we've seen that what happens when that goes wrong, right? Like with other exchanges that were really that what people thought were too big to fail, like FTX, right?
But again, I mean, to your point, FTX is an example of the exchange itself. You can argue was neutral, but when you
Right.
have people behind the exchange who had different intentions, then the exchange becomes the means to something which
Hmm.
unfortunately isn't very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point to bring it back around, right? Full circle. The technology remains innocent, and it remains going upward on a trajectory
Well,
that is accelerating so fast, right? And yeah, so it's up to us as educators to keep going and keep up with it and keep everybody informed. So I love the question. That's a great question about essential exchanges because it's often overlooked, right? People just you know, jump on something and they don't always do the due diligence checking.
Yep, thank you for that very wonderful insight, Nick. But by the way, we have another question here with regard to well, we hear you talking about new and emerging technologies, blockchain, NFT, AI,
Mm,
and with regards to this one, what what do you think? Because there's a brewing debate between some school of thoughts within the technology sphere, and some of them they pit this school of thought between themselves. Like some are pro AI, some are pro blockchain,
yeah.
while others are both at the same time. Now, what do you think? What do you think would be the role of AI, the development of the blockchain as a technology moving forward?
Mm. I think I think it like we mentioned before, it'll do some of the tedious work that may um, that may allow us to then focus on deeper level problems, right? I think AI is good for leveling up certain. I mean, people call it like a tool for reading and writing, right? It's like a calculator was for math, but it's just like a tool for reading and writing. I think as it evolves, you're going to see it become, a partner in creation. I think as the blockchain becomes more user friendly and different apps start to come to mainstream adoption, I think you'll see AI play a large role in that in terms of bots and in terms of what blockchain already is just like a decentralized network, right? So therefore, like you're removing any type of intermediary, and AI removes intermediaries across the board, right? So I think partnering and coupling some of the AI technologies, and you see this before, you see this in like in chatbots, and you see this in services that can be automated for you without a human interaction taking place. I think that's going to be a nice use case for specific dApps that are coming out on the blockchain, specific communities. Um, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think, like I said, it's still there's still so much there to tap into for the artist side and the creation side, um, and then it depends on what we do in education with how we want to build around it. How do we want to build, an open source, open educated metaverse with where because we're living in this age of information. It's just about how do we harness it and how do we get kids and others to see value in it and how do we share that. Our information is only as good as our ability to share it. AI provides us with that information. The metaverse provides us with that ability to share it. So therein is the perfect recipe for changing the way that we learn and interact together. But I think it's going to take time for sure as we all navigate it together.
Wow, that is such a powerful thing. And I also believe in that with regard to the the marrying between AI and blockchain. Well, I do
Mm.
believe that the two of them, while some of the technology just hit each other against each other, I do believe that intertwining them will be more beneficial
Yeah,
for
and
all parties concerned.
yeah, and I think that's it, right? Web3 is like the entire ecosystem. It's machine learning, it's AI, it's NFT, it's smart contracts. It's not waves of innovation, right? This is all one big crest. And I think that's the key. And we have to
Yeah,
look at it as one
an
big thing.
ecosystem, right? An
Yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, welcome back,
When
Fermin. We lost you for a
no,
while.
right, right. And I was about to say, perfectly true. The thing here is the technology is going to change whether we believe it or not. And so
Hmm.
clearly, people have a choice. And as James and I always like to tell our viewers, there's no right or wrong answer. It's a matter of living with the decision you make. Do you want to be part
Yeah,
of the technological change or do you want to be left behind? And I think
yeah,
the fact that we have shows like this, viewers listen in, clearly they've made the decision that they want to be part of this technological change and you embrace the good with the bad and just see what are the points that you can take from it.
yeah. And gentlemen, it was great to be a part of this today. Like I was really like happy and grateful for this time. Like what a cool initiative you guys have, and it's always good to like continue to spread the word because it's going to take a village, right, of people in order to change the misconception and gradually onboard people to over the bridge from Web 2 to Web 3. And I love it. I love what you guys are doing. So I just very happy that we were able to connect and that this
Yeah,
happened.
we're also
Right. And
thankful that
again,
you're present.
thank you.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Nick. And rest assured, this won't be the last time we're going to have you on board because, again, as we said,
Yeah,
as the
sounds great.
technology improves, I'm sure we're going to have other things to talk about.
Yeah,
Other topics
100%.
to talk
Looking
about.
forward to it.
Yes.
Cool. Nice one.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys.
Okay.
Very cool.
So, to our viewers, many thanks for taking time from your schedule to be with us. And we look forward to seeing you at our show again next week. But for now,
Yep. And we'd like to thank everyone of yours, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
See you again next time.